Greetings digital world, welcome back to a very special episode of Spliced In Later, our end of year episode where we look back on the year as a whole and we attempt to sum up what was the best of the best. And how do you look back on a year like 2020 and try and see what was the best of the best? 2020 sucked. I think that's the general consensus for everybody out there, regardless of where you work, what you do, where you live. The basic consensus is 2020 has been a bitch of a year, and hopefully we are about to see the back of it. Hopefully 2021 will present a bit of a better outlook for us. Let's not assume that we're going to jump right into January 1st and things will just be better immediately. That's not how time works. But as a whole, hopefully we can begin the processes that are required to have a better year. 2020 broke us, I think, and it's time we shook it off. But we should still focus on the positive. And as well, it's not really tradition because I've only done this once before, but I have, as you know, if you listen to my episodes regularly, I do a lot of top 10s and I've been working my way back through the years. I think we've covered 2015 to 2019, and we've also done a few specific genres like Disney, Pixar, Quentin Tarantino, stuff like that, Christmas movies. Well, today we are attempting to count down Spliced In Later's top 10 movies of 2020. Now, this episode will probably be a little different to other countdowns. I think it's going to be a lot shorter, and it might be a little bit less exciting as other ones, because 2020 was the year that movies stopped, essentially. We did get quite a few in different forms in media, but in terms of going to the movie theaters every week to see all the brand new blockbusters and Academy Award presented films that are normally presented like rain through the year were just not happening. They were delayed, they were bounced around, they were cancelled, all sorts of stuff. So we really only got a small number of movies to look at for our top 10 movies of 2020. And if I'm being perfectly honest, this list that I have presenting for you today is not one that would happen on a regular year. I think the bottom 4 on this list, on a normal top 10, probably would have had no chance of making the top 10. They may have made a chance at getting my honorable mentions because I mention a ton, probably more than is necessary. But in terms of the actual top 10, I don't feel like the bottom 4 of these movies I look at and go, these were absolutely stellar and need to be top of the pile if there had been a whole bunch of movies that were coming out, which is a little disappointing. However, we are going to jump right into it and we'll have our few parameters at the start. The first of which being that I think this episode's going to be a lot shorter because I'm not going to go into huge detail about every movie, because for the first time this year, I have reviewed every single movie that I'm about to list. So there's no point me going on about the plot and the things I liked and the things I didn't like and all that. If you want an extensive look of what I thought about each movie on this list, feel free to go back and have a look. If you want to look at a specific review, each movies can range between 14 to 26 minutes, depending on how much I want to talk about that movie. So, as we go through the list, I'm going to list them off. I'm going to summarize very briefly the main points why I think it's good, or at least deserved the coveted top 10 spot out of a total of 13 movies. And then we're going to move on to the next one. Again, if you want more information, episodes out there, reviews in full, check that out. And the usual parameters. I've not seen everything, even though very few movies came out in 2020. I've not seen everything. For instance, I have not seen Bill and Ted Face the Music, which is a travesty. The reason I have not seen Bill and Ted Face the Music is because I have yet to see Bogus Journey. And I don't want to see Face the Music until I see Bogus Journey, because I want to be able to get all the references that Face the Music has. Because from what I'm told and from what I believe, Bogus Journey is just as good, if not better, than Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So I don't want to watch Bill and Ted Face the Music and go, that must be a reference to a joke that I would have got if I'd seen Bogus Journey, but I haven't, so I can't appreciate it as much as I would, so that'll affect my overall presentation of the film. So it's just sitting on the back burner. I haven't got around to watching Bogus Journey because I'm just lazy and I just haven't really prioritized it, which is a shame. Something I hope to rectify in 2021. But I'm sure if I had seen Bill and Ted Face the Music, it probably would have 100% been on this list. But it isn't, so it's not going to be. So please don't be upset about that. It just is what it is. I also haven't seen a lot of what's on the streaming services or anything like that because I don't have them all. And the parameters for this list is what I'm usually sticking to, which was I usually make my top 10 list from movies that were released in theaters. I have adjusted it a little this year to reflect movies that were going to be released in the cinemas, but then were released on a streaming device due to the COVID-19 pandemic. If they were always going to be released on a streaming service, I haven't included it. You could say I'm limiting myself, and you're probably right, but that's just the way it is, and we're going to move forward from that. And of course, if you disagree with this list, as I'm sure a lot of you are going to because of the parameters I've put on myself, because of the lack of movies that were out this year, so you might have prioritized others than I have, there's going to be disagreements. But don't be upset, don't be annoyed, don't be angry. Just as I've said with all my other top 10s, go ahead and make your own top 10 list, share it if you want, but we're all here just to talk about movies and how great they are. We're not here to say your opinion is stupid. So let's not focus on that. 2020 is a bitch of a year as it is. Let's not add to it by being a bunch of, what's the word? Oh yeah, jerks. Cool. Alright, well that's our introduction out of the way. Nice and short compared to other top 10s. We're going to jump right into it. And again, I'm going to fire off through these movies as quickly as possible because we've already talked about them before. And also I've got a little, not an honorable mention. There will not be honorable mentions this year because there just aren't enough. And the movies that are left over from my top 10 would not have even got an honorable mention in the normal circumstances. So I'm not going to give them one now just for existing. But we will be doing something else as a replacement. However, sit back, relax, prepare to be sad, annoyed, intrigued, interested, however you want to be. Here are Spliced In Later's top 10 movies of 2020. Coming in at number 10, we have The New Mutants. The New Mutants was a film that was being delayed before there even was a pandemic. It was supposed to come out as far back as 2017, I believe, but due to changing of the guard, with Disney buying out Marvel, with decisions to turn the movie into a horror film, then a young adult film, then all of that, then just trying to find a place for it to go where it wouldn't be overswamped by the other big blockbusters that were coming out, seemed only fair and coincidentally maybe a strategic idea to release it at a time when there were no movies for it to compete against. However, the box office did not reflect that, as no one was going to the movies anyway. But The New Mutants itself, for what it was, I think is a satisfying movie for me. It probably would not have been on the top 10 list under normal circumstances, but it would have got an honorable mention. It definitely harkens back to a time of the early Marvel years before there was a big Marvel Cinematic Universe. I got vibes watching this from the old X-Men movies, the old Spider-Man movies. But basically, it is a movie that just existed, but it also knew what it was, which I appreciated for. I think why this movie resonated with me a lot more was because it was not the horror film that it was absolutely advertised to be, the big jump scare fiesto, which I was so anxious about. Right from the first 15 minutes of this movie, I went, okay, cool, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm instantly relieved, and I think that hiked up the movie tenfold for me. Everybody in the movie I thought did great with what the material that they were given. There were a lot of mutants in this movie that I am very familiar with from the comics and that I really enjoyed seeing adapted on the big screen, such as Cannonball, Sunspot, Wolfsbane. And in terms of potentialness for this film, look, yeah, it's a bit messy, and it reeks of a film that wanted to do more but knows it never will, and it was just released for the sake of it. But it's very good turn your brain off food, I think, for a movie theater. There's a lot of unintentionally hilarious moments in here which will make you giggle. There are moments of creepiness which I want from a horror film, not jump scares, just fucked up imagery, essentially. I think overall, if the MCU are going to take the X-Men and put them in the MCU, which obviously is the plan, they would be remiss if they just take the actors who have taken on these roles and just put them in the new movies. This movie doesn't have to be a part of that, but you know, you've got Maisie Williams as your Wolfsbane. Why not keep her? She was lovely in it, to be fair. I thought she was great, and she had a real great sense of humor on Twitter when people were saying this movie is the worst, and she said, "Cool, we better go see it then," to confirm. Overall, I rewatched it on the DVD when it was brought out, and I went, yeah, this is good. It's a nice, short, fun film with unintentionally hilarious moments, some good heart, some good character development, some good adaptation of mutants on the big screen, ludicrous where it needs to be, simple where it needs to be, not overstuffed, trying to be more than what it was, trying to pretend that it was more than it was. It's just a standard, simple film. For number 10, weighed up against the other 3 films that didn't make this list, there was no competition. New Mutants stood head and shoulders above the other 3, and it sits comfortably here at number 10. Coming in at number 9, Sonic the Hedgehog. Again, another film that I don't think would have made the list normally, but in terms of enjoyment, I had a great time with it, and it definitely would have made an honorable mention. If you are a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, I don't think you like this movie because of the way it adapts the Sonic lore. I'm not a huge Sonic the Hedgehog person. I am aware of him. I am aware of his world, of the character of Dr. Robotnik. But in terms of what he does, what his purpose is, what his goals, what his motivations are, I know absolutely zero, which I've been told I need to rectify by watching some other animated Sonic the Hedgehog films, which will let me know why I'm wrong about liking this film, which is fair enough. Perhaps I'll give that a go. The character of Sonic himself I did not care for. I thought he was a brat. I thought he was a jerk. But as I've also been told, apparently that's quite faithful to the adaptation of Sonic's character. Again, hammering home how much I'm probably unfamiliar with the Sonic the Hedgehog lore. But I did enjoy his buddy cop relationship he had with James Marsden in this film as the cop, the sheriff that takes him on his quest to get from point A to point B. I thought the story itself was fine, fun, simple. Kids are going to like it. I enjoyed it. But what really hammers home why I really enjoyed this film was Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. Now, again, I don't know if his portrayal of Dr. Robotnik is correct, but in terms of Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey, we get full Jim Carrey in this movie. Jim Carrey I've not seen since How the Grinch Stole Christmas or Bruce Almighty, where he's going full pelt with his slapstick humor to hammer home his jokes, his punchlines, going off on wild tangents, which is just entertaining to watch. You watch him doing his stuff with a big grin on your face to a point where you are waiting for more of Robotnik than you are of Sonic the Hedgehog. CGI itself was fine, whatever, but the actual confrontation between Sonic and Robotnik I did really enjoy at the end with the final thing. And of course, with every movie in the world that seems to come out these days, there's big hints at future sequels, but unlike the New Mutants, there's absolute confirmation that Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is coming because it did do well at the box office. It may have been the very last film to do a usual box office run before COVID-19 hit, and a surprising box office run as well. Who knows, Sonic the Hedgehog may sweep the Academy Awards this year because absolutely nothing else came out. It's a lot of fun. It's simple, clean fun, just like the New Mutants. Jim Carrey ruled. Sonic was fine. The adventure story, simple enough. Again, would not have made the top 10 list normally, but deserved an honorable mention and would weighed up against everything else, deserves to be on here. It stays a little bit ahead of the New Mutants because of its rewatchability and its enjoyment factor, and because of the comedy and potential for more that we get from Sonic that we don't really get from the New Mutants. So there you go. Simple enough stuff. Sonic the Hedgehog, good, clean fun at the movie theaters. Maybe if you're a fan of Sonic outside this movie, you won't like this movie. That's fine. In terms of just a simple animated kids adventure film, it was good stuff. Jim Carrey, love ya. Sonic the Hedgehog, number 9. Now, surprisingly, only coming in at number 8 is Wonder Woman 1984. I am as shocked as you all probably are, knowing my love for superhero movies and my love for Wonder Woman, and possibly even my review where I was quite positive about Wonder Woman 1984. But I have sat with it for a week and I've decided that while it's still a great movie that I enjoyed, there's a lot of stuff in it that makes rewatchability hard, that leaves you confused or annoyed, which unfortunately pushes this movie a lot further down the top 10 list than I thought it would be. Again, if you want to know my full opinion of Wonder Woman 1984, I only released a review just a couple days ago, so feel free to go have a look at that. But suffice it to say, it is a great Wonder Woman story as per usual. Gal Gadot was lovely as Wonder Woman, as was Chris Pine in his return as Steve Trevor. I thought the new villains that were introduced for the movie, Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord and Kristen Wiig's Barbara Minerva, were great new additions, and unlike other sequels where villains are introduced just for something else for the hero to overcome, they got really interesting, fleshed out stories to a point where I was more interested in what they were doing and what their ultimate goals were than I was of Wonder Woman herself, and it's Wonder Woman the movie. The 80s aesthetic was pretty cool. I enjoyed how the movie itself sort of changed to fit the feel of an 80s film. Applying 80s backdrop to the movie without showing in your face that this was from the 80s was a lovely relief. It didn't go, let's play every 80s song in the world, let's riff on 80s fashion. They kind of did, but they worked it in the way of Steve Trevor not being used to that world. Therefore, it wasn't done for the sake of it. It had a purpose in the plot to the story. However, what keeps it from getting up the top of this list is its overstuffed nature. The movie is much too long, and there are a lot of scenes in this movie where things just sort of meander along. You get the point, but the scene will not end. And a lot of loose, disconnected storylines that didn't meet up effectively enough for me to really explain why all the different things were happening and why the movie needed to be so long. Looking into this film, I've seen a lot of stuff which annoys me. Patty Jenkins has said how she had a big fight with Warner Brothers, that they wanted her to cut one of her 2 opening scenes, and she said no, she was going to keep both of them. Absolutely cut one of those 2 opening scenes. One of those 2 opening scenes does not need to be in the movie. It has no purpose to the rest of it except just to have Connie Nielsen and Robin Wright in the film. And also leaving things open for potential sequels that you don't know you're going to get. As I love Barbara's role in this movie, I felt like we did not get the payoff to her storyline. There was so much build up and then nothing. And I recently read this morning that, I wanted to leave it open-ended because maybe she can come back later in another movie. No, a movie needs to close gaps and points and wrap things up satisfactorily. You cannot just stop telling a story because you go, maybe we'll finish that off later. No, only if it works effectively. Let's say Doctor Strange, for example, Baron Mordo, who is Doctor Strange's enemy in the comics. He's his friend in the movie, and they obviously hint a lot during the movie about his eventual role. But Mordo's role himself is finished in the movie. He leaves Doctor Strange and goes off on a journey. You do get a post-credit scene with him later in the end, but in terms of Mordo's story, his character arc evolution has finished, and you can satisfactorily say, I saw Mordo from point A to point B. With Wonder Woman 1984, you see Barbara from point A, you see her going through her transformation, her character arc, everything like that, and then you get to the end of the movie, and you have one shot of her looking wistfully in the direction of somewhere, but you don't know what's going on in her mind. You don't know if she's learnt anything. You don't know if she's still affected by certain things. And then you never see her again. And not even a post-credit scene to hint at anything for future. Just stopped. So that sort of thinking, that looking ahead to other movies without working on your own movie really shows in this. And it really affected my overall enjoyment. However, I'm focusing too much on the negative here. It is a top 10 movie of 2020. So I will say that aside from the overstuffedness and the movie being too long and all this other stuff, which just nitpicks at me, it is still a fun Wonder Woman movie. Gal Gadot's great in it. I love the introduction of the villains. Steve Trevor was fine when he was in it. It is not very good rewatchability, but if you haven't seen it, you definitely do need to see it, especially if you are a Wonder Woman fan. And who knows? Maybe you will love this movie and be able to rewatch it more than I can. I just think, based on how much I love superhero movies and how I can explain to the cows come home why a movie can be long if it reflects the story. For instance, I think Avengers Endgame uses up every minute of its 3 hours effectively. Wonder Woman 1984, 2.5 hours, doesn't need to be. Cut it down to 2 hours. And because of stuff like that, it's why it's only here at number 8. Especially in a year where there were very few movies. Coming in at number 7 is Bad Boys for Life. Now, I don't know, if you have to go back and listen to my review, I probably wasn't too positive on Bad Boys for Life, but that was a different time. That was a different me. That was a person who was watching the first movie of 2020 and thought, it's okay, I've got another 44 movies to watch this year, I think. I'm pretty sure we'll forget about Bad Boys for Life in the long run, but that did not happen. Other movies did not come out. Bad Boys for Life kept sitting there. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I rewatched it. And based on rewatching other Bad Boys films, I have decided that Bad Boys for Life is actually quite a fun time at the movie theaters. It's not the most marvelous movie ever made. It's not something that would naturally be on this list normally in a 2019 or a 2018 world. But in terms of the content that we've got in 2020, Bad Boys for Life is fun, schlocky action that sometimes we all just need to keep our minds off how terrible the world is. Bad Boys for Life is quite a long movie, but I don't think that watching it, where I got that theme from Wonder Woman 1984. The chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence was great. You can tell that Martin Lawrence really wanted to do this because he came out of retirement for acting to team up with Will Smith again. They really play on the fact that these guys are old now and they probably shouldn't still be doing this same stuff anymore, but they keep doing it. They bump up the action to a ludicrous degree in terms of the criminals that they're after, and the reasons why they're after Will Smith and Martin Lawrence is bonkers entertaining. And they even have the classic older cops have to mentor the younger cops, but the younger cops are, while talented, stupid. So it's never quite overshadowed with, the bad boys are stupid. It's everybody's stupid for different particular reasons. But when they all team up and work together, it turns out to work pretty well. Bad Boys for Life, I think, is just good schlocky entertainment that you can use to turn your brain off, absolutely. And in terms of other Bad Boys 2 is just as long as Bad Boys for Life, but I cannot sit through Bad Boys 2 a lot of the time because I do not have the time and the patience for it. I think Bad Boys for Life learnt from the mistakes of Bad Boys 2 to create a more condensed character story. Mike and Marcus were actual friends in this movie, unlike Bad Boys 2, where they just seem to despise each other for some reason. It's a bit of a sore topic, I think, with cop movies and buddy cop movies and all that, with everything that's going on with the police in the world. So if you don't want to watch the movie for that specific type of reasons, I totally understand completely. I do not endorse cops in general, to be honest. But for schlocky entertainment value, it's entertaining time at the movies for sure. Bad Boys for Life, number 7. For number 6, and getting to the movies where I think had a genuine chance of being on a standard top 10 movies of the year, we have Birds of Prey, or The Fabulous Emancipation of One Heart, whatever the rest of the title is. Birds of Prey, that's what we're calling it here. Birds of Prey was a nice surprise. I was not thinking I would give it much cop. I didn't like the trailer. I didn't like the concept that I seem to be getting, the vibe, the theme. I was worried that while Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is great, that they were just going to hammer home that character until the end of the day. Unfortunately, this really isn't the Birds of Prey movie. It should just be called Harley Quinn because, as feared, Harley Quinn is 90% of this movie. But it's a testament to Margot Robbie's likability and performance that made that fine, made that enjoyable. She was great in it. It was a nice, fun, zany look at the DC extended universe that we have slowly starting to be getting as we move away from the grimness of Batman v Superman. We've got that from Wonder Woman, the original, Aquaman, Shazam, and now Birds of Prey here. It was a fun, silly time at the movies, basically. Again, one of the last few movies that came out before COVID-19 hit. We had a great villain in Ewan McGregor's Black Mask, who played him as campy, over-the-top, scene-chewing madness. He was not even really a super villain. The way he was confronted and dispatched was quite simple and easy, but he was sinister and menacing when he needed to be, uncomfortable to watch at times. The crimes he was committing are more relatable, I think, than a standard superhero schlocky type of film. And the Birds of Prey themselves that eventually worked with Harley Quinn, Huntress, Black Canary, Detective Montoya, Cassandra Cain, all of them together were great in terms of the storylines that they had going on. I just wish we could have got more out of them. But the camaraderie between them was sort of a I hate you sort of thing. They weren't friends. They were just teaming up for the necessity, but it was entertaining for sure. Especially Harley and Cassandra Cain's role as mentor and mentoree. Huntress was great. I wish we could have had more of Huntress because Mary Elizabeth Winstead was great in the role. It was true comedy fun, I think, which was something that Wonder Woman 1984 didn't really have, I think. Birds of Prey is a lovely length as well. It does not feel like it's overstaying its welcome for sure. It is a very nice, self-contained, simple story. I don't know if we'll get any more Birds of Prey movies. I haven't heard anything to the wise. I'm sure we'll get more Harley Quinn as we go into the future. But for all the DC movies, Birds of Prey stands on top of a lot of them in terms of its fun, its originality, its color, its vibrantness, the likability of its lead character and the team that she forms, the wackiness of the villain, the wackiness of Gotham City. This is the first time we've really been hanging around Gotham. in this new world, because Batman's always been off doing other things with other superheroes, it seems. And Gotham itself is a very weird, strange place. Not grungy and yucky as you get in a lot of Gotham adaptations. It's full of life and color, but the people in it are just madcap, neo-noir weirdos, and it was really entertaining to see that. And it was great they held off on the Joker as well. There was not Joker this, Joker that. Joker is a pivotal point of Harley Quinn's transformation in this story, but overall it's not, will we see Jared Leto? No, there's straight up at the start it says Joker's not going to be a part of this movie, so let's move on. Great fun time at the movie theaters. Probably the best superhero film of the year, which isn't saying much, but honestly it is, because it's higher than the other two superhero movies that came out. Great time for sure. Birds of Prey, number 6. At number 5, surprisingly and happily so, as you all know from my previous review, number 5 is the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, a movie that was supposed to hit the theaters in August and then eventually came out on Netflix in November. I'm sure you've heard the review, a lot of you, because it's my highest rated, not my highest rated, but my most played YouTube vid, possibly because, as I foolishly thought, there are tons of SpongeBob fans out there. SpongeBob certainly has a following that I did not expect in this day and age. But because of my low expectations of the film, because of my disappointment with the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water, which was the second film in the SpongeBob films, I did not go into this expecting really to be entertained or enjoyment of any kind. But what I got was a surprisingly simple, motivated, heartfelt story of SpongeBob and Patrick going on a journey to get SpongeBob's beloved pet snail Gary back because he has disappeared. And what followed was some wacky imagery and storytelling, a slew of surprising guest stars which were stuck around in some cases for more than just a cameo. Keanu Reeves' tumbleweed face turned out to be quite a significant part of the story. All the other characters got involved. It wasn't just the SpongeBob and Patrick show. We got some good stuff from Mr. Krabs and Plankton and Squidward and Sandy. The only downside to this movie was the shoehorning in of this spin-off idea, Camp Coral, which is coming out at some point. It felt completely out of place with the rest of the movie and was a really jarring halt. But otherwise, when that stuff wasn't on, there were some great gags, some good songs, some surprising, emotional and heartfelt moments, especially towards the end. There's some real heartfelt stuff going on there in terms of SpongeBob and his relationship with his friends that really had me on the verge of tears, which was absolutely surprising and delightful. SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run is exactly the type of movie that we needed in 2020. It is something that will enjoy. You'll get a lot of entertainment out. It's good, turn your brain off fun in a good way. Nice and short, nice and sweet, nice and simple. The SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, well deserved, entertainingly so, is up here on the list at number 5. Now, when I say that 2020 didn't have many films that helped making this list, when it made good films, it made good films. The quality jump with these last 5 from the other movies is substantial, to the point where with the top 4, it was really hard for me to order them in any way. I think I've come down with my definitive lineup, but when I say definitive, who knows? I could wake up 2 days from now and go, you know what, that could have been number 3, that could have been number 4, that could have been number 2. So look on with these top 4 what you will. They're very interchangeable. They're all good in very different ways and all deserve to be up here. For number 4, I have decided to go with the Pixar movie Soul, which just came out. My review for that only went up a few days ago. Soul was a delightful movie about the purpose of life and our goals and our motivations and what we do of ourselves when we're alive and dead and being world weary and all of that stuff. Very heavy stuff for what is generally considered to be aimed at a kids film. I think a lot of stuff in this will go over kids' heads, but adults will certainly get a lot out of Soul. The emotional journey of Joe Gardner, voiced by Jamie Foxx, and Soul 22, voiced by Tina Fey. 2 very different outlooks on life in a collision course of each other. One desperate to stay alive, one desperate to never live at all. The story that they go on with their journey to uncover the truths that will help them become better characters at the whole is natural and well thought out. The colors and imagery of this world look sensational. The contrast between the great beyond and New York as well was very jarring in the purposeful way, I think, from the corporate to the vibrant. The jazziness of the New York setting, the themes that were explored, the protagonist stuff, which I don't think has been done in a Pixar film before, and of course, your standard Pixar comedy with wacky humor and fourth wall breaking and metaphors, plenty of stuff to go around in there. Soul could have been a lot higher just in terms of quality of a film. As I said in my Soul review, people might rate Soul a lot higher than I do, and they're probably right, based on what it takes to be a good film. But in terms of with things that resonated for me, the 3 films above Soul, I think, just have a little bit more for me personally. However, if you were to tell me I'm wrong and Soul is a better movie than all these other films, I'd go, yeah, you're probably right. But this is my list after all. All I can really say for certain is that Soul is a top-notch film with great themes, great emotion, great characters, great visuals, great story, everything you come to expect from a Pixar film. It was not released in the theaters, unfortunately. It went straight to Disney Plus for Christmas Day, so it's there waiting for you if you'd like to check it out. But Soul, great film, number 4. Coming in at number 3, the very, very, very first film of 2020, and I'm including it as part of this list to help make this top 10 movies acceptable for me, especially because I did see this movie in the back half of 2019, the last few weeks of December. But according to worldwide releases and official production for this movie, it is considered a 2020 movie because its worldwide release for everybody was on the 1st of January 2020. So I'm twisting my rules to allow The Gentleman to be included in this list at number 3. The Gentleman was the latest Guy Ritchie film. I'm a huge Guy Ritchie fan. I love the zaniness of a Guy Ritchie film, the way the non-linear storytelling, jumping back and forth between points of views and characters, especially when he focuses on crime and English gangsters, because they're all wacky and they've got outrageous personalities that make them a joy to watch. The dialogue that Guy Ritchie writes means that it's always entertaining to hear them talk to each other because of the things that come out of their mouths. It's just bonkers sometimes, but you cannot look away. For The Gentleman, Matthew McConaughey was our lead, and he was entertaining enough, but what I got out of The Gentleman was the story of Charlie Hunnam and Hugh Grant, and the two of them bickering back and forth with each other as they basically told the story of The Gentleman. There was a lot going on, there were a lot of moving parts, but I never felt confused, I never felt lost. I got exactly what I wanted out of a Guy Ritchie film, which is just wacky, insane escapism that'll keep a big grin on your face while you're watching it. It'll keep you entertained. It'll twist and turn so you'll go, okay, cool, I get you. And overall, you'll walk out of the film going, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. And that's why I think I rate The Gentleman a little bit higher than Soul, because while Soul is a great entertaining movie, I think you've got to be in the mood for the themes that they are experiencing and discussing to really get what you want out of it. The Gentleman, you can be happy, you can be sad, you can be angry, and you can put the film on and it absolutely will change your opinion and your outward emotion to one of enjoyment because of a lot of fun with the gangsteriness of it. The Gentleman, very rewatchable, rewatched it a few times now, great film. For a long time it was number 1 on this list because nothing was coming out, but luckily we had some few other films come in to shake things up a little bit. But for now, it's great classic Guy Ritchie, great classic comedy, great classic action, great classic swearing, everything you want out of a fun movie like this. The Gentleman, number 3. At number 2, where I'm sure I'll annoy or anger a few people, but I have chosen Onward to be my number 2. Now, Onward's getting a bad rap out there. I'm seeing a lot of articles at the moment going, why Soul is better than Onward. Why Soul feels like a Pixar movie and Onward doesn't. And whatever. If you want to shit on Onward, or if you want to make a big fuss about 2 Pixar movies and saying which one's good and which one's bad, go for it. It's your prerogative. You do as you wish. For me, I loved Onward from the moment I saw it. Onward was the very last movie I saw at the cinemas before COVIDness shut everything down for a good 6 months. The movie itself is a lot of fun. It's a very interesting premise and plot of Dungeons and Dragons characters that essentially evolved like humans did. They discovered electricity and coal and fire and everything, so they're living lives like we are, but they're fairies and pixies and goblins and orcs and all of that stuff, which is great. But the stuff that resonates with me for Onward is the brotherly relationship between Ian and Barley, voiced by Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. the brotherly antagonism but also support that they have for each other as they go on this journey to reunite with their long dead father was heartfelt and emotional for me, because I have the same sort of relationship with my own brother. So I was seeing a lot of that in the story. I also really enjoyed the uniqueness of the world, applying this Dungeons and Dragons stuff to a real life setting. A manticore that runs a kid's restaurant, fairies that are biker gang. It's just a lot of fun. And that's the type of movie that I really enjoy as well. Something that has the heavy themes, because there's a lot in this movie about the brotherly relationship, fatherly relationship, what one relationship means to the other. So there is plenty of stuff in here to make you think and sad and all of the stuff that you get from a Pixar film. But there's also lots of light-hearted fun and entertainment, which I really got out of Onward. When I put Onward and Soul next to each other, I rate Onward higher, clearly, because of those reasons. And I refuse to let people explain to me why Onward is not a good Pixar movie, or should even be considered a Pixar movie, because of this stuff. If you spend your days trying to rate every Pixar movie 12 out of 10 and find reasons why it shouldn't be, you are wasting your time, essentially. Onward is good, it is fun, it is heartfelt, it's interesting, it's exciting, there's a lot going on in there, and I am firmly confident in having it here at number 2. Now, before we do our top 1, as you can see by our running time, this is a lot shorter than most top 10s. I just want to do a very quick in memoriam. Now, basically what that means is I just want to pledge my condolences to all the movies that, because of COVID-19 and everything going on in movie theaters and movie productions and things like that, did not come out. I had a huge list of movies I wanted to see, and through no fault of their own, I saw none of them. A lot of them were delayed constantly throughout the year before finding new dates in 2021, or just disappearing from the schedule. So instead of our honorable mentions, here are some movies that I just want to say rest in peace for now. My upset condolences that we couldn't see you this year, and hopefully we can see you next year, provided that things improve just a little bit, or we find some nice common ground for releasing movies in 2021. In March is Coming to America, The Kingsman, and Morbius. All were supposed to come out this year, delayed to next year. April, No Time to Die, A Quiet Place Part 2, and Black Widow. May, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Fast and Furious 9. June, Ghostbusters Afterlife. July, Top Gun Maverick, Minions: The Rise of Gru, Jungle Cruise, and The Green Knight. In September, Death on the Nile, and Dune. Poor Dune. In October, Snake Eyes and Eternals. For all those movies, just want to say my condolences. Hopefully we'll get to see you next year. I've got you written down on another list for 2021 films. Whether it's going to turn into my list for this year, which is basically a recreation of Charlie's Pepe Silva meme or GIF from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is just crossed and arrows and everything, trying to keep up to date with where movies were going and what they were doing. Who can say? But I'm sure a lot of those movies are great. I'm sure they would have been on this list. But for now, we'll just have to wait and see. But what is the number 1 movie of 2020 based on all the movies that came out? I think you would know this already if you've been watching my reviews, if you knew my opinion on movies and directors and things. But of course, number 1 for me is Tennant, the Christopher Nolan movie that was supposed to save movie theaters. But so far, it seems to have only helped in putting a nail in the coffin. But the movie itself, great. Classic Christopher Nolan stuff where it's not something simple and straightforward, that you have to see the movie really to understand what's going on. It's basically a look at entropy and the passage of time, forwards and backwards. We have our protagonist, John David Washington, who's going on a mission. He's basically going to stop a terrorist from blowing up the world. But through this Tenet stuff that's going on, it's not as simple as stopping him at this point in time. There's a lot of backwards and forwards and going around and all this stuff to keep you on your toes. Of course, he teams up with a few people. There's a lot of other actors in this film. Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki, Kenneth Branagh. But this is John David Washington's show. He's in about 99% of the film, and he absolutely kills it. He carries it, as does Robert Pattinson when he's in it. Robert Pattinson was a delightful role in this film, and it made me realize that he's probably a really great actor, and I should see him in other stuff, just not Twilight. It does require a few rewatches to really fully get what's going on, but not too many, I think. For the most part, as long as you're watching the film with subtitles on and you're paying attention, everything that's happening in the movie does explain itself in a way that you can figure it out and you can solve what's going on. There are probably a few plot holes if you think about it too much, but my advice is to not do that because it might detract your overall enjoyment and opinion of the film. But there's nothing more satisfying than sitting in a movie theater watching a film where you're sort of going, what's going on? I don't get it, but not because the movie's bad, but because I have not been given the information I need yet to solve it. And then when you do solve it, you go, cool, good on me. I am smart. It was a nice return to the theaters. Tennant, for all the arguments, I think was best experienced in the movie theaters. I don't think you could load Tennant up on your mobile phone or your iPad and really get the enjoyment and experience that you would get from a surround sound movie theater with the lights down and zoned in on the big screen. But if you haven't seen it, and that's the only way to do it, definitely do it, because it was a great film. I love Christopher Nolan films. I've already done an episode devoted to him and his best films. Tenet might not be the best Christopher Nolan film, but it was definitely up to his usual standard. There was a lot going on. It was entertaining, it was intriguing, it was engrossing, it was exciting. And from the moment I saw it, I knew that it was probably going to be the top movie of 2020. In fact, to be fair to Tenet, it might even have ended up being the top 1 movie of the year if it had been up against everything else. It's hard to say. It's that good, to be honest. It was a huge step up from a lot of other movies that I had seen this year. So, Christopher Nolan, John David Washington, Entropy, Time, Tenet, all of that, engrossing, entertaining, wonderful stuff. Spliced In Later's #1 movie of 2020. And with that, we'll call it a day, and I just want to say, have a happy new year to everybody. Enjoy shaking off 2020. I'm sure we all want to see the back of it. As I wrap up, I just want to say thank you all for listening to me, for tuning in as you do, whether you tune in every now and then just to pick up a particular episode. If you've been listening to me every single episode, which hats off to you, thank you for doing that. I know a few specific people that are doing it, and to them specifically, I say thank you. It means so much to me to have anybody have a look at my stuff, even if it's only for a few seconds, or if you sit through the whole episode, however you want to do it. In the madness that's been 2020, this has been a nice stable point for me to have something to do every week to focus on good enjoyment, which is basically just movies and TV, focus on something that's not the madness that is the outside world, and it's kept me sane. And a lot of that has been as a result of people listening and giving me feedback and all of that. So I thank you all. It's been truly wonderful. I can't wait to keep doing this in 2021, and hopefully things will improve as we go forward. But I'll be taking a teeny tiny break, just a week, to basically just take some me time. I've got some holiday stuff to do, some travel plans, anything like that. So just to rest up a bit. As I'm sure you'll all be off doing your own New Year's Eve and New Year's Day stuff, you probably won't need a new episode in the first week of January. But it will not be long. I think I'll be back around the middle of January to jump back into 2021 content. So I look forward to then. I hope you all will be there to listen to me, and I hope you all have a great New Year's. Enjoy, stay safe, stay lovely. Fuck 2020, bring on 2021. But as always, you've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.